Hey guys, it's time for another worst to best boss ranking, and today I will be talking about the bosses from the amazing game Remnant 2. I fought around 25 bosses in this game, but I'm only choosing 15 because some of them are just simple enemies with health bars. I just played the main game, so no bosses from the DLCs. At number 15 we have the absolute worst boss in Remnant 2, and that title belongs to no other than Legion. This boss is so bad that even if I included all bosses in the game, it would probably still get last place. As we enter, we are greeted to a cutscene, so of course I was expecting something cool, but instead we have a flying object that does nothing but give you an status effect. Which means of course that there will be a ton of normal enemies that are just unbelievably annoying. Beating this boss felt like a terrible game of hide and seek, and I could not wait for it to end. At number 14 we have another very annoying boss, and again for all the wrong reasons, because yet again the biggest problem in this boss, it's not the boss itself, but the tons of enemies that will simply melt your health away by shooting projectiles from everywhere. To make things worse, this was easily one of the bosses that killed me the most, and the run back to them is incredibly long, and since running away from enemies in this game mostly never works, I was forced to kill tons of enemies over and over again just to be able to fight them again. When I finally beat them, it was simple luck, because only one of the bosses started attacking me while the other was nowhere to be found. And honestly, I don't feel bad at all that happened, because it was a boss I had zero fun with. At number 13 we have the first boss from the game, which is definitely an improvement over the last two bosses. But honestly, it's not a very memorable one. The fact that the boss becomes an enemy later into the game is always never a good thing. Even though this boss has a bit of fun to it because we fight with 3 more friends, the very small moveset and very simple appearance from the boss wasn't a great impression of what bosses could be in this game. Luckily things get much better in the boss department later, but again Remnant is not a great boss in any way, shape or form. At number 12 we have our first average quality boss, Corruptor. This boss looks cool, and I like the fact that the arena can be used to help us avoid the giant robot and also the giant laser attack, but honestly I thought this boss had potential to be much more. Being so close to the end of the game and looking at the appearance of the boss, I was expecting a big challenge, but beating Corruptor is crazy easy. Once you beat the robot, the boss will just fly around and you can punish him with almost zero problems to remove a gigantic portion of his health bar. Something as simple as the robot moving faster would be a giant step in creating a much more challenging boss, but as it is, Corruptor is just a walk in the park that you almost forget in no time. At number 11 we have the Abomination, and I am happy to say this is a boss I quite enjoyed. Is this a boss that just becomes a normal enemy in the game? Yes, but in this arena I think this boss really works, and it's definitely a good time to fight him. For Abomination, your aiming will be tested because this boss' weak points are not that easy to hit, because this boss will simply not stop moving. This was my first boss after my meeting with Remnant, and it was definitely an improvement and made me feel very curious to what bosses would come in the future. And entering this top 10 we have Cancer, which was the first boss I fought in the final area of Remnant 2. Even though his visual design make him look like he's just a standard enemy, this is quite an enjoyable fight with a pretty cool song and some really flashy attacks that feel really good to dodge. Cancer might not be an incredible boss, but it's definitely a fun one. At number 9 we have Gwendol, and the first thing I want to say about her is that I was a bit disappointed after my first fight with her. After going through the phenomenal area of Blossom, I had high hopes that the boss here would be some giant vampire or a werewolf, but instead I got a lady throwing bombs. After dying sometimes though, I have to admit I was having fun fighting her and the multiple enemies, because this is a very fast-paced fight, which is something I like. The fact that this fight has one of the best soundtracks in the game also helps in me liking this fight a bit more than I probably should. A neat thing I also realized was that I can actually hit the bomb she tries to throw at you for some massive damage. Again, Gwendol was not what I expected, but it was a very fun boss to fight. At number 8 we have Shrewd, which is kind of a normal enemy in the game, but with a few more attacks and some enemies to join the fight. Even though all that I just said doesn't sound like fun, the reality is that I enjoyed every second of fighting this boss. Dodging through his combos and arrows feels really good, and killing all the flying things before they turn into enemies also helps creating a very enjoyable fight. Besides that, this is a boss that has an awesome arena and one of the best songs in the entire game. At number 7 we have Venom, and no, it's not the one from Marvel, but instead the final boss before the actual final boss. And I will start by saying that his placement in the game is great because he is easily one of the most challenging bosses in the game. He has combos, he throws his weapon, he has projectiles, and when he is close to the end, he will have this spectacular looking attack that will drain your health bar if you don't react quickly. In the end, Venom is a great challenge with lots of visual spectacle that will give you an awesome rush of emotions when you finally beat him. At number 6 we have a very special boss for me because the Astropath was my first big challenge. I found this boss very soon in the game, and so I was still fresh, and my build was nowhere near to be over. The Astropath will start by trying to punch you, laser you, and throw projectiles at you, only to later into the fight go away, and these purple ghosts will appear from everywhere around the arena, punishing you really hard unless you move crazy quick. He also has replicas of him that you must kill as fast as possible, or this might mean the end for you. Astropath almost made it to the top 5, and it sure deserves it because this is a kick-ass boss. At number 5 we have Tyrafa, which is a boss that you can fight in 2 different ways. As soon as you find him, he will do a certain question, and depending on your answer you will either fight his normal self or it will be his metaphysical form. Either of them are super cool to fight, and in particular Rata Metaphysical is quite the visual spectacle. This was my first world boss, and even though I wish the boss was a bit harder, it was still a damn good time. Now it's time for insane high quality bosses, and Red Prince almost made it to the top 3, but the 3 remaining bosses are just a little bit better in my opinion. The fight with Red Prince starts with him throwing some combos at you and summoning ghosts to throw some projectiles in your direction. While first phase is not hard at all, the real fight begins when he goes into the Ring of Fire, which at first I could not figure out what I needed to do. So I kept dying over and over again, until I realized I had to go to the center of the arena. In here, you will see an unbelievable visual spectacle as the Red Prince will start attacking you, coming from the awesome circle of fire surrounding you to kick your ass over and over again. Fighting the Red Prince is without a doubt one of the coolest moments in this game. Now for the final 3, my first pick was the Nightweaver, the boss at the end of Blossom. Now before you even get to the fight, there is an entire story about her that is told by these patients in a mental institution, and you should go through every single one of them because it will build your anticipation to this fight to extreme levels. The Nightweaver is a spectacular boss that can do insane damage on first phase, but the highlight of the fight will come from her second phase, where we are teleported inside a haunted house and she will start teleporting everywhere to try to take you down. Even though I wish she had a bigger moveset, this is easily one of the most memorable bosses in the game and very deserving of the third spot. At number 2 we have the Labyrinth Sentinel, and the first thing I want to say is of course that this is one of the most original fights I've ever seen in a video game. You fight 4 cubes in the ground and another 4 in the air, and you have to eat each twice to be able to do some damage. Now this might sound simple, but the problem is the arena is a maze, and if you make any mistake the cubes will always one-shot you. Not only was this one of the best bosses in the game, it was also one of the hardest, and to make it even better, it had a kick-ass soundtrack. The Labyrinth Sentinel is a boss I will never forget, and one that I hope to fight again sometime soon. And at number 1, the absolute best boss in the game, and honestly this is a crazy easy decision, we have Annihilation. In every game I play, I am always looking forward to see the final boss, and I am extremely happy to say that not only this boss is phenomenal, but honestly is one of the best bosses I fought in any game ever. The entrance alone to the fight is insanely epic, with a gorgeous arena, the boss coming down flying, and the bombastic soundtrack. After we beat first phase, which is tons of fun, we are greeted with a spectacular cutscene, and second phase is simply amazing. But the best part is yet to come, because when the boss reaches a certain amount of health, he will start alternating between phases, making the fight an incredible spectacle and a very challenging one. Annihilation is the best boss in Remnant 2, and if I ever do a top 10 bosses of all time list, he will definitely be there. And that is it for this boss ranking. Remnant 2 is a blast of a game, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if possible tell me in the comments what were your top 3 favorite ones. See you on the next video guys, bye bye.